Morning.
Hello, Scott.
Hi.
I'm glad to have you here today very much.
I'm very glad to be here. I know we were talking before we started this session, this radio show today, about knowing and what it's like to know things again. How to look in the universe and begin to perceive things. Like when we had this group session the other night that you were not able to attend. You knew where we were, way up in the higher dimensions. And you mentioned it to me. And I said, you're right, Perry, you got it exactly right. That's knowing. When you know who you are and where the earth is right now from the Savior's Agenda book, and you begin to understand where we are along the timeline in that book, you're really tuning into knowing. Your knowing, not my knowing. And that, like I said, when we first crossed paths, you couldn't have possibly understood that. But now, I mean, more of you is awake on earth, and you can do this now. And that's really a really wonderful thing for me to witness. Because this is why I do it, to help people recover that. So maybe tonight, with your permission, we should talk and explore, in general, knowing.
Please.
Okay, negative emotions which are artificially created, not on earth, by the way, originally. People need to get off thinking so closed as being just on this earth, because life has existed out in the universes and multi-galaxies for billions of years in this form. Humans didn't originate here. They didn't evolve on this planet. They were brought here from other worlds long ago. Knowing this is true and believing it, or having a theory about whether extraterrestrials exist or not, keeps people in doubt and fear. And tyrants can control people when they can keep them in doubt and fear. All negative emotions like doubt and fear and speculation and theory and fear and anger and hate, all these things were created artificially and implanted in people subconsciously without their consent, which is what has resulted over a long period of time in the majority of the people on this planet being here, incarnated here, born here, growing up here, without any awareness of where they came from before that, or how they got here, what happened. What is it they actually went through that put them here? It wasn't just some supreme being's will and they just stuffed them here with no memory and said, now get it right. That doesn't make any sense. So we're going to talk a little bit about knowing and what it's like to feel it and experience it. As you know now, when you know something, you simply inherently know it. You just know it. You can't explain to another person who does not yet know. When they look in the multidimensional universe, in their imagination, in a meditation, or in a contemplation, like for instance, meditation in the past was usually used by people thousands of years ago when they had no electricity, no radio, and there were tyrant kings running everything. And people would go into this to find a way out of being subjugated by these kings. And they would usually go out in the country or off in the caves somewhere, divide themselves away from normal living in order to concentrate on remembering who they are and how to know things out in the universe again, even from Earth. And some people in the past were able to do this, but not too many out of the whole populace of the planet, just a few. So people really weren't, with all the help of spiritual so-called masters throughout the history, the little known history that people are taught in school about this planet. Most of them were not able to really free whole populations. And most of the people on Earth today realize this subconsciously, that people have not been being liberated here. Doesn't matter which person came to Earth or when, it really hasn't been working out that way. What's changed recently about knowing and how people can acquire knowing again, wake it up, recover it, recall it. When the right situation is presented to a person, when it crosses their path, it begins to become so obvious to people that something unique is taking place in front of them. something that actually changes the course of their life in a good way. They feel it, they sense it, they start to be drawn towards it, they ask questions, they move in that positive direction. That's something that started, I think, for this planet about 7 Earth years ago. Because of what happened out in the stars amongst other races, their master teachers, and the beings from higher dimensions, the heavens people refer to, that influenced a great change out in the universe, which is inspiring masses of people on other worlds who work in harmony to begin to change this planet for the first time in galactic history. That's what we're going through now. When a person starts to recover more of who they are as an Atma, what people on Earth call a soul, they also begin to become aware of what it's shaped like, what they're like, what they've been made to forget. That isn't the body that can move around the entire multidimensional universe when it recovers the ability in knowing how to do it. The way to access traveling to other worlds and other planets and meeting extraterrestrials and getting on ships and going to parallel dimensions on Earth and into other realities and higher dimensions, even way beyond the void known to most Buddhists, way higher up than that, into other higher dimensions, is through the creative imagination, because the creative imagination is not made up in the brain. It is what this spherical shaped energy, not made of matter, it is energy, but not like molecules and protons and electrons. It's made of an energy that is not bound by the laws of physics. It's not bound by the speed of light, as it's known on Earth. It moves in a omnipresent, means it's everywhere, even in the void of space and all the way up through the dimensions, way to what the most advanced beings in other worlds call the source or prime creator. We, the beings who run human bodies, and many others, including the beings who run animals, originate many dimensions above the void known to most Buddhists in a very fine energy field, a plane of, it's kind of like being a drop of pure water, an energy, an individual, completely unique, in an entire galaxy of this energy whirling around the center, made of exactly the same thing. The little Atmas, us, and the entire thing itself, what we call the source, the supreme being, are identical. The energy we are comprised of, the faculties of creation, of perception, of knowing, are the same as the supreme being, the source itself. Which means, if that's true, and it is, the real destiny of a human being is to one day recover all they once knew that they were made to forget about how to be trusted to be a co-creator, not a co-slave, not a property, a piece of property of the Supreme Being, no, but a co-creator with it. The purpose of us, all of us as human beings, is to create new ways of doing things from our journeys in all these lower planes and lives that we bring back to that source one day and download it for the benefit of everyone. And when that's done, and they test it in the lower worlds like on Earth, and that wave energy comes back to the beings that test it, and it says, wow, that's true, necessary, and kind, then they'll implement it in all of creation, and the whole universe begins to change. That's what we're going through right now. It's pretty cool. It means that there is a primary change in divine spirit itself, in the entire energy that supports all creation, that never existed before, ever, hundreds of billions of years. It means the experiment, which was an experiment at one time long ago, of evil, is being retired because it never worked. It's a failed experiment that ended up trapping many beings in the lower worlds who cannot remember who they are and how to get back. That's being reversed because something is brought into creation now that's taking its place, that only inspires beings to create intentionally and consciously that which will be of uplifting benefit to all life. Not just life on Earth, all life in the entire multidimensional creation. That is the real destiny of a human being. Oddly enough, this key word that opens doorways into this depth and width of knowing is this sound which was brought into creation at the beginning. Hu, the first sound behind all creation. Human beings can say it with vocal cords. Even a blind or a deaf person, once they learn how, can imagine it and hear it inside. Blind people I know, when they're out of their body at night and in an astral or a higher form, can see perfectly well. It's just the physical body that can't. The same for deaf people. So when they're out of their body at night, they don't have the limitations that they're suffering from in the body that's on earth. Some of the people I know that are pretty enlightened, that are deaf or blind, know and see, but not hear. So they're limited. If they can get out and learn to get out and be free as a being, they can see and know and hear things, but it also gives them the opportunity, meeting the right people, crossing paths with the right master teachers, even to correct that blindness in the body on earth. The danger of that here is that as soon as you do that, it's a miracle. People say it's a miracle, and the governments get involved. Everybody wants to know how they did it, and then they're sequestered away and taken off to some lab and classified. It's not easy to be a normal human being with a body that lives 1,000 years in a planet like this, but that's changing. Just a second. And because that's changing, it gives me the opportunity to do what I'm doing here with your radio show that goes to Asia. It's on the internet, it's on YouTube. It gives me the opportunity to represent a vast host of beings that are not from this world, to help make a change here permanently in a new direction for the first time. I mean, we're all living today on this earth in a way that was never prophesied. It was never meant to be. Even who's president of the United States now was never seen as a vision from people in the past. Things are changing in ways people can't put a finger on anymore, because the past prophesied destructive Armageddon kind of end of the world stuff was permanently changed in a new direction just a few years ago, Earth time. What's important when I say that isn't that I say it because people hear data or information, which might inspire them. It's because I know that what I'm involved in helps people also find ways to experience knowing this for themselves. That's what's important to me and the people I work with. Nothing else. It means that what we're doing now out in the stars and on this earth is meant for the benefit of all people on earth. Royal families, regular people, all races, hidden government, classified people. And they're not all bad people. Some are tyrants and some are not. Majority of them aren't. And they want disclosure. They want this to change because the people that have a classified space program on this planet know already by now quite clearly that there are races and energies around this earth and coming here that cannot be turned around. And they're going in one direction, which is for the benefit of all life. So it means that they are beginning to comply and realize this isn't about someone subjugating them or dominating them. It's about liberating consciousness, which is good for all people. Health, longevity, consciousness. When this world changes enough, the beings from other worlds will bring their technology here. No disease, live 1,000 years or more, photographic memories, telepathy, natural and normal, in normal human beings in other worlds, and correct this place so that it can take its place among the stars. All the technology to travel across the universe will be provided at no charge, because the races out there I work with made money and those kinds of things illegal a long time ago. They don't use it. They don't barter. Somebody doesn't provide 50 goats for 20 sheep, and whoever gets the most goats is the guy in power. Bartering doesn't work either. It's just another form of money in a way. On Earth, we have to deal with that now because that's what everybody's conditioned to. But really, when they're playing with money, like ink on paper, they're really trading bark from trees for things. That's how silly it is. It's not backed by gold or anything. Sawdust is made into paper. Ink's put on that paper. It's got a government seal on it. And people exchange it for food and everything else. But it's really just bark from trees. That's all it is. So people are conditioned to it, and I have to use it, and everybody does, until everybody on this planet agrees we don't want it anymore. Everyone. And that will come about. When the consciousness has risen enough, nobody will want it. No one. And that's interesting. So when I speak on your little radio show and we do this thing, it's very important because the vibrations of that deliberately hidden truth that's being revealed is being revealed not to attack anyone or harm anyone, but to liberate the subconscious implants, programs that drive people to act like tyrants. And that was done to them through the misuse of advanced extraterrestrial technology out in the universe before people came here. So they don't remember. And they think, well, that's just normal. God put me here. I have a contract with God. Somebody told me that. That's just somebody telling them that. How do they know that's true? Again, we come back to knowing. And that's what the theme of this show is. So why don't you tell your audience what knowing is for you? You have a few practical experiences. Like just recently that where you just know something, you tune into it, and then you get it confirmed by me or someone else who is actually doing that something you're not there in, and it's exactly the same thing. You telepathically tune into it. There's a knowing there that happens when you begin to get the knack of it, and you begin to realize you're becoming a knower again, not a person that's just living in doubt.
Yeah, yesterday, because I could not join the group meeting with you and other people, right? So I was working on computer, Scott, and then suddenly I feel like I was up there in a very high dimension, you know, and then I saw, because we have many meetings together, right? So I know the beings that
tell people, they may not understand, but tell them what you saw.
I saw the beach, the white sand beach, and blue energy. It looks like an ocean.
The blue energy, right, which is a way up there.
And I saw Ambassador Trollian standing.
Yep, he was there, and many other people. And we were in a group going there. You were in Thailand. You weren't there physically on the Zoom with us.
Mm-hmm.
And yet when you wrote to me, I wrote you back. And before you even saw the video, I sent you the copy of the video of our session.
Right.
And I told you were absolutely right on. You knew what we were doing and where we were. That's knowing. When we first crossed paths many months ago, you couldn't have even comprehended this. Couldn't have understood it. But now it's like, of course I understand it. Yes, I know. That's the difference between a knowing being, which is normal, and people on earth who remain in doubt and fear, promoted by all the media, which is controlled by selfish interests for now, to make people stay confused about what is true and what is not true. When they get on the internet, or you go to coast, or you go to a radio show that's popular, you go and try to find truth, and you hear 50,000 viewpoints about one thing, and most of them are about what people believe, what their theory is about something. That's just data. That's just a belief. It's not someone talking about what they know is true. It's about what they believe is true. There's a difference between remaining in belief, which is not backed by direct knowing experience, real spiritual illumination, real enlightenment. And when a person is in belief, they're really behind that, hidden in the subconscious, is fear and terror of the unknown and what was done to them to put them on this planet they just can't look at. Because it was not pleasant, and it wasn't this lifetime. That's not easy for any being to look at. So to do it, a person needs not only support they can't get from Earth, but the kind of encouragement and safety that's generated by beings who do not have subconscious minds at all. Normal human beings, but not from Earth. Who are telepathic, which is not psychic, It's a pure form of communication between beings through the hue, divine spirit, that cannot be penetrated by or manipulated by any form of negativity, negative beings in or out of bodies, or any technology. That's a pretty big statement. What matters is when a person starts to experience that this is true for themselves. Then they start to become liberated on this planet, as backward as it is. They start to become co-creators to bring this change about with billions of other beings who are aware of this world and beginning to help it. Because not long ago, the benevolent, kind, mass organizations of beings out there that travel the stars became aware that Earth people really don't have true free will. And because of that, you cannot leave a populace on a planet who don't have true free will, because it's been suppressed, to make decisions rightly about whether they'll blow themselves up or not. That's not free will. That's misdirected, terrorizing subconscious influences on their nervous system that make them make wrong decisions about almost everything. That's planet Earth.
Scott, may I say something first about your book? Because some people don't understand, like, we're doing shows because of you want to sell the book. I don't say enough, this book is more than a book, really. People just have to buy it, to practice with it, and to understand. Me, myself, I have overwhelming experience, like wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yeah,
and to
right.
to the point that can recall,
You're right. It's about their own experience, not mine, not yours, Perry. But if what we say and do can help inspire them to go and be involved in by their own real true free will, even though it's suppressed, when they start moving in a certain direction, they begin to cross paths with people like me and other beings and other influences that help them unravel this tight subconscious knot, to loosen it up and get it lifted. The Sayers Agenda was written during a time when I was writing about my own life's experiences, how I first came to this planet when I was only 3 or 4 or 5 years of age physically. And I was an adult being, a male from another world, human. And I was stuffed into this body without my consent or permission on a mission what I came here for. And that mission was intercepted. It's a long story, so I won't go into it here. What was started more than 60 years ago to change with world leaders and bring this world into a different culture altogether is now beginning in earnest. Because now, unlike when I first came here, there are massive organizations of beings that travel the stars and their master teachers involved not only with heading in this direction, but providing a certain protection that supersedes even the law of physics. It supersedes even the law of what people do when they want to be a tyrant, or they use weapons on people, or they'll do this or do that. And it starts to backfire on them when they try to continue to deceive people in a kind way. It doesn't hurt anyone, but it begins to change their consciousness so they don't want to behave like that anymore. That's the way to liberate a planet. You can't fight people like this, psychically or otherwise. It's negative, and they'll just trap you with it. When people have their fists up around the world trying to fight the good fight against the bad tyrants, they know that. They want people throwing stones at all the wrong places, because the real hidden tyrants are not public figures that they know of. So when a person begins to wake up in this way, and they learn how to rediscover really how to use their creative imagination properly, there's a core aspect of their being that begins to override any negative thing that was ever done to that person in all of galactic history in billions of lives on many dimensional levels. And that being, this godly nature in the being, starts to surface. It begins to take back control over subconscious implants, terrorizing things that tyrants have done for misuse of technology to enslave human beings and bring them to Earth to mine in different cultures on Earth and in histories that people on Earth don't even know existed, going back 50 million years since the dinosaurs were made extinct. There's a whole history there. It's revealed in the Sayers Agenda, and it's also revealed in the Emerald Doorway. the 2 books that are published now that I've written. The other 2 books of the Parallel Time Trilogy, The Emerald Doorway is book 1, are also written. They'll be published when it's appropriate. When the first 2 books are popular enough to warrant publishing those books and make them useful so they become a next bridge of expanded awareness that people can walk up carefully and safely and in a balanced way. So this change in this world that's coming is being done so that people wake up without imbalancing their physical lives, changing everything, everybody getting divorced and everybody going off in different directions. It's not being done like that. That isn't practical. People from other worlds know this. When a person's been suppressed for, 10,000 years and they don't even remember who they are, and they've been incarnating different bodies often on this earth over and over again with no memory, it takes a while to get the person of their own true free will awakened, working with their higher faculties and exercising like dormant muscles to get them strong again, confident with higher faculty use, with the ability to use the imagination to look out into the multidimensional universe and see what it's like on Mars, or on the other side of the moon, or on another planet far away, or the center of the Milky Way galaxy, or Andromeda galaxy, or the capital city of the astral plane, the emotional plane, the next heaven up, or the causal, the mental, etheric, the void known to the Buddhists, the planes above it. Human beings are actually capable in this true form of understanding and comprehending what the source or supreme being is, because they're made of exactly the same energy, identical in every way. So when I say this stuff, it rings a bell with people because somewhere deep in their past, they used to know this stuff really well. I'm speaking about every living thing on this planet now. Earth is not a normal human planet. It never has been. Not yet. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of spacefaring races, many of them human, out among the stars in our own galaxy, and people on Earth deliberately been kept in the dark about all this, especially after World War II, when it was deemed by 35 countries that people should not be made aware of that because it scared the pants off the leaders on this earth, and they wanted to get people to rebuild a damaged torn world after World War II and get them to be baby boomers and feel secure. So their thinking was, that's how they were thinking. But when you begin to deceive people after enough years, it becomes an entity unto itself, and people are caught in a bad habit. They want to disclose everything, but they don't know how to do it safely. They think they're going to be targeted and killed by the massive people here. That is never going to happen. Because the beings I work with from other worlds are going to make certain that that kind of terror and trauma in the streets is not going to take place in this transition, this uplifting transformation. They know what they're doing. It isn't about taking power away from people. It's not about dominating them from a race from the stars. Only tyrants think that way. It's about helping people recover their own autonomy as individual gods and goddesses in a great eternity, really. To become normal like beings on so many other worlds are now. The Earth world is headed into an entirely new direction and destiny than anybody thought would happen. I'm kind of like at the forefront of announcing that and also co-creating it into existence with vast host of other fellow beings, highly, highly trained, very, very knowledgeable. I'll give you an example. Just in the physical universe alone, a normal human being on another planet, by the time a child is about 10 years old, out in the Pleiades or somewhere out there, they have the equivalence of 10 PhDs to a human being adult on this planet by the time they're 10. And they live to be 1,000 years up to 20,000 years, depending upon their choice and the mission or the purpose they have in life. The bodies don't age like people on Earth. I know beings that are friends of mine, men and women, couples in the Galactic Alliance itself, that are 280 to 350 years old, and they look to be about 36. They are wise compared to people on Earth. But to them, they don't place themselves above people on Earth. They know what was done to people here. Some of the people on this planet were long lost friends of theirs that got sequestered away and stolen by tyrants in a war 500,000 years ago, put on slave planets, and all kinds of stuff that happened that people have no idea is in their background. The key to remembering and freedom comes from remembering all of that background, because that represents a very godly type of knowledge and wisdom, all that experience. So when people on Earth begin to recover this, they become wise and loving and deep and normal. I'd say this, the couples that I've met, their energy is so high compared to a person on Earth. And they consider themselves normal when they travel around the stars. They can get in and out of their bodies. Their children can. They're not in fear of death or what they are that happens when the body dies. They know exactly what they are. That isn't the body. For them, that's normal. So for people on Earth, they see that what was done to people in a history people don't remember. Not only is it reversible, but they know what the great creative potential is that people on Earth will make to the entire universe when they're liberated from this nonsense. That's what they're looking at, the potential. How much the suppressed people on Earth will make to the entire source of all life, for the good of all life, and change the entire direction we're heading is in the entire creation. One of the first things that has to happen by an agreement of all life in all the planes is to decide to get rid of the experiment of evil by replacing with something that was brought into creation that actually does work. The whole principle of the physical and astral and causal, all these lower dimensions people hear about, was originally brought into creation to make the mirrors of the upper worlds. That never happened because things were in the way. So that's underway now, and I wanted to say that. So knowing that, which is the theme of this radio show, and believing it or thinking it might be true are two different things. We want to get people more into the knowing side of things.
It's got more to say because the people here in Thailand, but I have a meeting with them, and then one start recall, remember things, that is very good. Only practicing heal from your book, it's wonderful.
Yeah, because I didn't invent it. The people among the stars out in the galaxy, in many billions of galaxies, did not invent it. It wasn't invented in the lower worlds. It's a safeguard, and when it begins to wake up in a being, what it is, it opens a door in the pineal gland in the center of a human being's brain. And in it are frequency modulators, like little rods and cones like in the eyes, and they're tuned to different realities and different dimensions. Part of the structure of a human being, people know how to use it on Earth. But when you can go through that door or go beyond it and get out of the body, the being that you are has a structure to it. It has layers, and it has different self-effulgent teardrop-shaped lights in it that are built up in these layers. Each one is a high faculty, a creative faculty of one individual being, what the most advanced races in the stars call Atma. People on Earth call it soul, but people on Earth don't really know what that is. They don't even know what it looks like. They think, well, it's like my astral body. It looks like my physical body. That's not soul. That's just a body they have on the next dimension. They're running another body and they don't even know it, living a separate life from here, where everything in matter is created and moved around by emotion. That's the astral plane. It has two currents flowing through it, positive and negative. When they're unified together and in harmony, and there's one bigger energy behind it, then that positive and negative energy creates new things without karma, without the law of cause and effect. When people use those two energies, one good for the future, one terrified of the future, they're putting out the energy in two ways opposed to themselves. It short circuits their creative energy into the earth and they stay grounded to this planet. They don't even know they're doing it. So when a person becomes aware there's only one correct way to use the imagination, which is not made up in the brain, by the way. The brain has no motion picture camera or view screen to project a film on for you to see. That's not what its function is. The being, the real being that's running the body, can see out in the universe and see things, and that's what imagination is. It's distorted often because of subconscious terrorizing programs. And when people come back at night after they come back to their body and wake it up, sometimes they remember a dream clearly, sometimes it's a jumbled mess. That's because of subconscious influences. We know that those things are reversible, subconscious influences, because normal human beings in other worlds don't have a subconscious mind. People on Earth think that's normal because they don't know any better. They've never been taught that by teachers, their parents, governments, or anybody else on this planet. They have no idea from birth. They're not taught by parents or schools that leaving your body is normal while you're alive in one. Nobody's taught that. So why would they exercise dormant faculties and know how to do it? That's what we want to get turned around. That's the difference between knowing truth or awakening deliberately hidden truth and staying in fear and doubt your whole life. It's not necessary. Nobody needs to do that anymore. And that's what this is all about. That's why I'm doing these shows. That's the only reason I do them.
Scott, when we start knowing things, I think we can live life happier,
Well,
I don't know why, how it happens.
When you know something, it's good for the physical body. You feel relaxed. The energy is charged. When you're in doubt and fear, it puts stress on the body because two currents are flowing through it, good and bad at the same time. So for many people, just knowing turning the imagination in one whole direction and not splitting it is enough to change their life forever. But either way you cut it, it just takes a little practice and some time to get back into knowing all this stuff is real, it's truthful, and it works. And everybody, as a human being, have the capability to know things. They may not believe it, they may not have faith in it, they may doubt it, but all that's, you can get rid of that. It's all reversible. Beings from other worlds and other dimensions that I work with know how to help people get rid of that. But that person's true free will has to be co-creatively awakened enough to be involved in that process. It can't just be done to them. Tyrants do things to people without their permission. Benevolent, kind beings don't do that. They'll help a person recover by that person's own effort, creatively asking for and contributing to that awakening. That's the right way to do things, because then the change in a person is permanent, and it cannot be changed by tyrants ever again. That's important. That's what the new ray is I talk about in the book. It's woven in this divine spirit, in this hue, this omnipresent, primordial first sound behind all creation. That first sound is not made of matter. It's not made of electrons and protons and neutrons and quarks and all that kind of stuff. It is something deeper than that. It's energy behind matter. It's like the people in the CERN Super Collider, the Large Hadron Collider in CERN, Switzerland, found, which they call the God particle. It doesn't behave like they expected it to when they proved it existed. And now they've got a whole mystery on their hands. Why doesn't it work that way? They know it's there. They haven't got a clue about what it does or how to access it, because it's just mental for them. It's intellectual. It's not experiential, except for what they see on the screens, on computer screens, about some reaction happened. But for them, it's not a personal experience. It's just data. But it's a good beginning, because it's beginning to be more enlightened in science on Earth. Quantum physics is interesting because the most advanced quantum physicists look at individual beings as a quantum, a little individual atma, in a great big quantum field of energy. That's how they look at it. And it's a very spiritual viewpoint. They may not call it that, but it's correct. Except that quantum field goes all the way up into higher dimensions and way beyond what people understand on Earth anymore. People in other worlds know about this stuff. They know about all the 4 lower dimensions. Most beings that travel the stars know there's 144 parallel dimensions of physical universes, just in the physical dimension alone, with planets and galaxies and all of them. The beings that travel the stars and anti-gravity technology and more advanced technology know how to circumnavigate all that. And they have associations with all those worlds, billions of them. In my book, The Savior's Agenda, I say there's 450 plus million worlds in the Galactic Alliance alone that are spacefaring benevolent world systems that people on Earth don't know about. A smaller number of tyrant races who are being, as we speak, freed from the tyrant subconscious drives that have made them tyrants in galactic history. So they don't come back to this planet and try to infiltrate it and get control of it for slaves and resources. People don't look at and ask the right questions. There's been a reason why we've never had a nuclear war on this planet. It's not because of the decisions of government people. They tried to create one 12 separate times I know of. And each time they did, the launch computers were shut down by forces not from this planet. It's very highly classified, and it's scary to them to reveal that to people. Because there are beings out there that if they were bad and tyrants wanted to come down here and take over the earth and enslave everybody, kill everybody, they could do it. Our militaries could not defend against it. Fortunately, though, we are not alone in the universe and never have been. There are beings out there who've prevented tyrants from ruining this place many times without really interfering in the closed down states of consciousness of politics and things on this planet. That's changing for the first time. Because the way people are misdirected here subconsciously, they will destroy this place. That cannot be tolerated by beings who live outside of here. Because destroying this place, especially with nuclear devices, if they were allowed to use them, which I've said they are not, that would ruin life here, but it would also ruin life in parallel dimensions on this earth, where there are other worlds in a different time frequency, right in the same space with life on them, and it would harm beings out in the universe through interdimensional doorways that exist in a profuse, abundant nature in a geometric grid pattern around the surface of this planet or in the atmosphere. That will not be tolerated. Unconscious people on Earth do not have the right to destroy themselves and harm so much other life. That's one of the reasons it's been prevented. Since the beings I work with are not tyrants, they don't force their will on anyone. But they're going to they've already drawn a line in the sand. This has to do with tyrant beings from other worlds and hidden tyrants on Earth. Those beings are not targeted for harm, but they are being focused on to help them change and give up the very thing that they hate being like. They don't want to be like that. They want to be normal and be free and play in the universe too. This planet in the solar system is still quarantined by more advanced races. So if people want to play in the universe like you see on Star Trek, they're going to have to step up and join much larger organizations of world systems. We're not going to be allowed to bring destructive weaponry on ships out in space with radioactive materials because they're illegal out there. They don't use those kinds of power sources that are polluting and destructive. Got rid of them eons ago. So you see, Earth has only one choice if it wants to go out to the future and play among the stars. People in this world have to allow themselves of real free will to change for the better, for their families, for the planet, for the nature, for the animals, for everything. Knowing that provides a certain confidence to a person. And it becomes, when they know this for sure, a motivation that drives them or encourages them in no uncertain terms to begin to find ways to share that with people who are still trapped and unconscious on a world or many worlds. What else is there of any worth to do in the universe than help free fellow beings? That includes tyrants too. Every last Atma in every form is involved in this process. Make no mistake about that. Otherwise, people just put their fist up again and they're playing that back and forth good and bad game and waste their lives, and then they can get compelled to incarnate again with no memory. That's pretty silly. It's time that came to an end, that whole thing. So when I do this, you I'm doing it with Ambassador Turellian and countless other beings who I'm telepathically in link with, and they're doing it with me. And that is an energy channel that's only for the benevolent, uplifting good of all life here. And it goes out to your radio show, and it goes out to the entire planet, through the planet, out into the universe. It cannot be reversed. It cannot be manipulated by negative frequencies and technology or weapons or beings in or out of bodies, ghosts, goblins, spooks, or any of it. It operates in the hue, and that is dominant over and came before good and bad came into existence. That's the energies we work with. And they are all heading in one direction, not two. One. In the lower universe, out in the universe, on other planets, and behind the scenes on this planet. It's good for all life. It really is. So I wanted to share that with your people. What I usually like to do, and I'll do this on this show just to raise the vibration so people can have some experience with getting some upliftment first. I'll send out the hue to cap off this show at least 9 times in successively higher tones. When I'm hewing, it's a telepathic thing. It is not psychic. I'm not putting down psychic. But psychic energies operate through etheric, mental, causal, astral, physical dimensions. They split off from one whole current above the void known to the Buddhists and become 2 in the lower worlds. What happens when I do this is it comes out as a telepathic thing, which comes from communication in the primordial hue itself. It's not split into 2 currents. It stays whole. And then it comes out into the universe, and it connects with the core of a person's being to begin to wake that knowing that they've been made to forget, starts to wake it up. That's why I do it. It's a telepathic thing. It's a pure thing. It can't be done for power, greed, or money, or any of that. The hue won't even work with those kinds of emotions or energies at all. Can't bring them into it and try to manipulate it. It won't work. It doesn't work. If you want to co-create with the hue, people do, they have to work it in the right way, for the right reason, for the right purpose. And then all kinds of miracles can happen. So I will use this sound as a vehicle to encourage other people that listen to be co-creative, to think of themselves as gods and goddesses amongst a huge, huge, gigantic source of all life. And that their destiny as this Atma, not the body, is to co-create with that source and be trusted with doing it in new ways. That's the destiny of a human being. The Sayres Agenda book is being published at the beginning of next month, roughly, with a new cover in a larger format size, 6x9, like the Emerald Doorway is. And also published with it will be a new EPUB and eMobi for Kindle readers and EPUB files that have in the back special techniques section hyperlinks, so that the prologue and all 29 chapters is a special technique involving the hue to awaken deliberately hidden truth safely for each of those areas in the book. And when it says, okay, exercise 1, prologue, go to this section, which begins with the paragraph that starts with, and it will be underlined. And when you click on that, it goes right to that part of the book for a person to read the suggested reading section that they do before they do this exercise to awaken dormant faculties for that part of the book. And it goes like that through all 29 sections. So that will be published as well. And they're going to be published, the Sayres Agenda is going to begin to be published through my Total Spectrum Publishing Company. It's currently published through a New York publisher, but I'm changing all that next month. The Emerald Doorway is already published through Total Spectrum Publishing Company. And then in September, we're going to design a new cover for the Emerald Doorway as well. So that's just an update for people. They can find out at paralleltime.com, www.paralleltime.com. The main website. 3 others are being developed to support that website. And they can get a download of this new ebook now, but it's a little harder to use the technique section because in an ebook, when it says go to page 327 to read a certain paragraph or two, in a printed book, it's always on page 337. But in an ebook downloaded, it could be 1,000 pages. There are different font sizes and readers. And so it won't show up on that page. They have to do a little hunting by going to the beginning of the paragraph and finding the chapters that begin with what I recommend. But in the new ebook, they won't have to do that anymore. They'll be able to click right on the hyperlink and go right to it. So it'll be a big improvement in it.
The new ebook will start in the beginning of next month too, right?
Excuse me?
The new ebook will be ready the beginning of next month.
Published at the same time.
Okay.
They're basically ready. We're just tweaking a few final little things. Testing hyperlinks, making sure everything works, and the new cover is done. I showed it to you earlier. Yeah, it's going to be a lot better and a lot more fun. So we'll keep people updated. I want to wish you and all of your listeners great goodwill, wonderful dreams, awakening dreams, and changes in their physical life in a balanced way where they start to become the knower.
Thank you for your uplifting energy and all the knowledge, Scott. Is more than I can say, really. People just have to experience by themselves.
Then you can help them a lot in your part of the world because you're having these knowing experiences and they're going to be ongoing and they're going to be ramped up. So you'll be able to communicate in Thai and in their language about how to go about this. Like I'm sharing with you, you'll simply co-create it for all of them, and I'll help you do that, of course. So we're friends of ours from out of town meaning off planet. So it's all good, and it's all, you can really sink your teeth into something that really matters, changes things. So good night to everybody.
Okay, good night, Scott. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Good night.